Markets. Globalist technocrats versus the people. A line in the sand. The McIntyre Report. News, current affairs, facts and opinion. Their future in our hands. Markets, globalist technocrats versus the people. A line in the sand. The McIntyre Report. News, current affairs, facts and opinion. Their future in our hands.
That was my water.
Markets,
Sorry, that's yours.
globalist technocrats versus the people. A line in the sand. The McIntyre Report.
And welcome, folks. Jamie McIntyre here on behalf of the McIntyre Report, a very special edition, Free Speech Summit. Thank you for coming wherever you are around the world. It's an honour and a privilege to be the founder of the host network, Australian National Review, independent media out of Australia, ANR.news. You can follow our 24-hour news headlines. You can live stream globally. Listen in wherever you are around the world from ANR.news with a live stream for this event as well. Welcome for those in the live audience in Gold Coast, Australia. I'm disappointed I can't be there in person, but for many reasons we can't be there. This summit, Free Speech Summit, is bringing together a large amount of amazing speakers from all around the world. Unfortunately, though, some of the speakers have been banned from coming into the country. Australia is meant to be a democratic country that supports free speech. A question I have right up front is that Anthony Albanese, Australian Prime Minister, who dictated to you in recent days to block and revoke visas of some American speakers coming to Australia to speak at this Free Speech Summit? Who is directing you that? And I also must ask, why is there only the one country out of all the countries? How many countries on the planet? 160 plus countries on the planet. Why is there only one country on the entire planet that has opposed this Free Speech Summit going ahead, that has sent their activists and their lobbyists for the last week harassing speakers, over 30 emails demanding that they not speak at this event? Not only that, they had Star Casino, a formerly public listed company, with a 2,000-seat theatre organised with over 2,000 people flying in from around Australia and around the world to attend at that event. They had to cancel at the last minute. So I want to thank you, the team, and the people that have made this possible, despite foreign interference from only one country, that one country being Israel. Now, I can't understand, I don't know whether you can guess, why is Israel trying to censor free speech in Australia? Don't they have their hands busy dropping bombs on children in Gaza? Aren't they busy now dropping bombs on Syria and last week on Lebanon, and they're bombing Yemen, and they were bombing Iran until Iran taught them a lesson? But doesn't Israel have better things to do than to be interfering with free speech in Australia? And how has that got anything to do with Australia? Well, they're questions we're going to talk about in my session, folks, because here at Independent Media, we aren't censored. Well, we are censored, but we aren't dictated by editorial control. We have a duty. Independent media, unlike fake news media, so here's one of the biggest differences. Fake news media, they start every day setting out to deliberately lie and mislead and deceive you, because the media, legacy media, mainstream media, fake news media, as many of us call it, is globalist media. It's not media. It's a platform to push a false narrative upon you. Now, many of you listening to this are critical thinkers. You already follow independent media, and you're aware of that. But for many years, we didn't. For many years, we just believed what was on TV to be true. Clearly, we were misled and deceived. And during the COVID pandemic, many people become awakened to the fact that, hang on, love and passion, very few actually make a living from it. And citizen journalists have to say, why are they so scared? If their nation was built on truth and not lies, they would have nothing to fear. If what they're doing in Gaza was correct and right and and what's great for humanity and really caring about people, they would have nothing to fear, would they? And this is not about being an anti-Semitic event, as those activists might suggest. If you wanted to go on an to a particular event where it has such biases, I was at CPAC recently, 6 months ago, almost to this date in Washington. First time to CPAC, there was with our Australian National Review US correspondent Lily Gaddis, and we're reporting live from that event. And I was warned just before I arrived at this event. I thought this would be an event. It's a conservative political action group, the biggest conservative political conference on the planet. Donald Trump's there, Nigel Farage, Elon Musk, all the who's who of conservative politics in the world. But I was warned just before I got there that, hey, this is a Zionist event. CPAC is a Zionist event. I was like, I'll keep an open mind. I have a lot of Jewish friends. I have no issues with my Jewish friends. Actually, half my friends are Jewish. So, but doesn't mean they're Zionists. But this event would be a Zionist event, I was told. I was like, I'll keep an open mind. Maybe it's not. And then I heard that these bombs could accidentally fall on schools, universities, hospitals, could take out ambulance officers. Seem to happen to kill a lot of independent journalists that aren't with us today because they believed in reporting the truth, and they were killed for it. By which country? Which is the one country on the planet that's slaughtering at will journalists? Oh, that happens to be Israel. I don't particularly want to talk about this nation too much, but every topic we're going to talk about here today and this weekend, guess what it all relates back to? It relates back to the one country and the only country on the planet that doesn't want you to hear the Free Speech Summit. They wanted to stop this Free Speech Summit going ahead. And that country, of course, is Israel. So Mark Levine, CPAC Washington, a Zionist conference, is on stage inciting violence, saying the Palestinian people are worse than animals. They are subhuman, and to call them animals is an offense to animals because they're worse than animals. No, but he's an Zionist. Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Yemen, destroyed Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan. 7 wars in 5 years after they did oppose to free speech appears to be Israel. Now, is that what it has to be to pro-Semitic? So if that's what pro-Semitic is, and I'm anti-Semitic and the rest of us for criticizing that, then I would rather be anti-Semitic than pro-Semitic. Because choose your side, folks. Are you on the side that drops bombs on innocent children and then lies about it and pretends it's not happening? Or are you on the side that stands up for humanity? There's 2 choices. Are you with humanity, or are you with the fake state of Israel that claims to be biblical, but it only started 77 years ago, so it can't be biblical? And wait for this. That's right, they told you. The founders of Israel, we'll talk about them after the break, told you that they were chosen by God. Now, I don't know about you, but maybe in 1948 they didn't have fact checkers. Were there fact checkers in 1948? Because clearly not, because I'm pretty sure the Rothschilds, the founders of Israel, the wanker banker family, that's right, one of the richest banking families on the planet, that just happen to be satanic Luciferians as well, that hate God, don't even believe in God, told you that God chose them to be the representatives here on earth. Now, let's fact check that for a minute. Are the Rothschilds, satanic Luciferians, wanker banker family that created Israel in 1948, do you think God really chose them? I'll let you ponder that. We'll be back in just a moment after this quick break.
The McIntyre Report.
And welcome back, folks, to McIntyre Report. We're here at the Free Speech Summit in Gold Coast, Australia. Special edition for this being broadcast millions around the world. We're listening in to an event that a certain country wanted to ban in Australia. Do we have free speech in Australia anymore? Well, they don't like it. They don't like what we have to say. Let's explore a little bit more of that, not just in Australia, but in the West. So how is it that a foreign nation can dictate to the Australian government to ban people coming to a free speech summit that we're going to speak freely because apparently free speech isn't allowed? Why is that? What are they hiding? Let's have a listen to what Joe Rogan said, the importance of independent
Because if it was not for independent journalism, we would be in a pickle. We would be in a really bad state because a lot of people got duped by the pharmacological industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry, the military-industrial complex. They've been duped by so many different companies and corporations that have a vested interest in getting one narrative out. And if you can get that narrative out through the traditional pipelines of mainstream media with no one fact-checking, no one interfering, no independent journalist saying, actually, that's not true at all. Here's why they did that. This was the influence. Here's where the money is. We have emails. We can show you they were influenced. If it wasn't for them, we would be fucked. And it's one of the beautiful things about the internet today. The internet today allows people like that to thrive because these mainstream media corporations are so corrupt. They're so obviously indebted to the companies that pay for their advertising.
Well said there. We would be effed, as Joe Rogan said. Thank you to independent media journalists. Joe Rogan, by the way, is nominated for one of the awards you'll hear tonight, Independent Media Awards, coming up tonight at the gala event held on the Gold Coast. If you're in the live audience, make sure you get yourself to that. But other will be also live streamed as well. Candace Owens been nominated for an award, Tucker Carlson, Whitney Webbing, Carol, many others, and also your everyday sinister journalists as well. So make sure you check that out later. Independent Media Awards, who's going to win those categories. But I've got to agree with you. I think fake news media, the mainstream media legacy is dying for a reason. Perhaps people are fed up with their lies. 2013, we started Australian National Review. It was a not-for-profit, still is, and it was really set up. This is way back then. We launched our first. It was originally a newspaper. It was the first newspaper released in decades in Australia. Because in 2013, whistleblowers come to us at Australian National Review, doctors and science with detailed data, not just Australian National Review, but independent media, and said, the vaccine industry is a complete and utter fraud. They haven't never properly safety tested any vaccine, and this is what the industry is planning. So I was so outraged because before then I was pro-vaxxer. And I realized I was just ignorant, naive, and gullible. Why would I be a pro-vaxxer? Because I believed what the government was telling us. I believed what the fake news media was telling us. So I was ignorant. I had to admit, I was naive. I was too trusting. The same thing back then, I used to be pro-Israel. Why was I pro-Israel in 2013? Because, once again, I believed what the media was telling us. I believed what the government was telling us. That they would surely never lie to us. But then I realized, looking back, how naive I was, how ignorant I was, how too trusting I was. So I'm no longer pro-vaccine. I'm no longer pro-Israel. I'm pro-humanity, pro-truth. So that means that people like me get labeled as anti-Semitic. It goes, well, to be pro-Semitic these days, you have to cheer on the mass murder of babies and children and then lie about it and think that you're in the right. That arrogance. Well, I choose not to support genocide. Therefore, I'm not pro-Israel. No apologies for that. I'm not anti-Jewish. Half my friends are Jewish. And then the other half of my friends, many of them are tight asses. I pretty swear they're probably Jewish and not telling me. But beside the point. So we started out with the belief that we can make a difference. And we warn people not to touch the COVID vaccine. And we get thank you messages almost every day. So thank you, Australian National Review. Thank you, Jamie, what you've done. That if it wasn't for you, my family would have took the vaccine. Now I see my relatives and other family members dying of heart attacks and sadly people dropping dead left, right and centre, excess rates through the roof, excess death rates. And we'll talk about that very soon. We have Steve Kirsch, flown in, tech entrepreneur and turned vaccine advocate, anti-vaccine advocate. He'll be speaking right after me, but stay tuned for that. So we talk about all the fraud of the COVID vaccine, but we also predicted in 2016, I wrote a book, The Great Vaccine Con, which you can get for free at anr.news. And we predicted by 2022 that they would use government mandates to drive the sales up from an industry in 2002 was simply something like 5 billion annually in sales to drive it up to over 150 billion by 2022. How did we know back in 2016 that in 2022 exactly what was going to happen happened? No, everyone thought that would be a wild conspiracy theory. You're just an anti-vaxxer. But we turned out to be right, folks, didn't we? How many of you in this room, how many watching in from around the world were like, you told people, warned people about the vaccine. You told people that it's a falsified pandemic. That's complete hyped up bullshit. And don't take it, but you wished you were wrong. How many times have we wished wrong? It's not coming from ego going, I'm right, you're wrong. It's like, look, this is what our research is saying. We don't have a crystal ball, but this is likely what's going to happen. We don't want to be right. We don't want to be right. We were hoping we were wrong, that the vaccines weren't deadly. But unfortunately, we were right. We're hoping to be wrong about Israel, that maybe Israel really deeply cares for Gazans and just dropping peace-loving bombs on them, not sniping kids in the head once but twice and crushing them under the weight of the bulldozers. Some IDF bulldozer operators boast about killing over 100 of them, still dying under the rubble as they crush them. I mean, that's the height of just greatness, right? Surely God chose those people for a reason, like maybe to rush kids under bulldozers. I don't think so. So, independent media, we would be stuffed without it. So 2030, so point being, if you listen to independent media, you'll be both richer and healthier. If you listen to fake news media, you would never touch Bitcoin back then, so you'd be poorer as a result, and you would have took the COVID vaccine, and unfortunately your life expectancy is probably dropped because of that, or unfortunately, some people aren't here anymore. So it pays to be careful who you listen to. Independent media or fake news media, make your choice. Listen to lying governments, or people out there trying to do the best for you. Support the people. Support independent media.
Violence and speech are not the same. I can offend you, that's different from shooting you. Do not accept any attempt to take away your birthright, something that God gave you and that government's job is to protect, which is your absolute right to say what you think is true, period. And that is worth defending above all things. And there are going to be people you think you're allies. The deception is profound. It's profound. We were promised profound deception, and we're getting it. It's not simple deception. It's not, drink Bud Light because some dude dressed as a schoolgirl. That's the obvious deception. He's not a schoolgirl. He's a dude. That's not really deception. That's like make-believe. It's a joke. Deep deception is an actual threat. And it plays upon your best qualities, your compassion. That's what happened during COVID. Good people obey. Do you love your grandparents? Then you'll obey. Well, of course, all good people love their grandparents. They respect the elderly. So they preyed upon your best qualities. They leveraged your decency against you. That's deception. And you're going to see that with speech. You're going to see this is hate. And some of it may, in fact, be hateful. But it's still your birthright to express what you believe, even if other people don't like it.
And well said there, Tucker Carlson. I think he's shown his true colors in recent times, really speaking up, and now, of course, being criticized by the media because he's been somewhat critical of, that fake state created in 1948, that's untouchable, that you're not allowed to criticize. You're allowed free speech. As the ADL, the Defamation League, will say, free speech might be allowed there, but not freedom of reach. In other words, we're going to censor those. So the only people that want to censor things is those who are protecting lies. See, the truth is ugly. The truth is brutal. I got to admit, if you want to be popular, don't speak the truth. But your duty, each and every one of you sitting in this room today or watching from anywhere around the world, here's my belief. Each and every one of us has a duty to know the truth, to speak the truth, and to share the truth. That is our duty, and I think it's something as a human, it's an obligation that we have. Why spend your time on this planet living a life based on lies? What a pathetic way to live. And expose belong to the cool crowd. And because they need external validation because they can't validate themselves from within. They went and got boosted. How many professional class fell for the COVID fraud? Couldn't see it. Why? Because those of us quit school early or college, independent critical thinking, tend to see through the bullshit and called this out early days that this is a falsified pandemic. It's completely hype. It's completely full of shit. We figured it out straight away. But other people like fully matured adults that have degrees, most of them, some of them are still arguing that COVID was real, that the COVID pandemic was real. They don't understand it was a falsified pandemic. They just invented cases. The PCR test doesn't work. I'm not saying there wasn't something created in a lab that caused people to be sick, but it was hyped to the hilt. You know that. Now, they create different flus in labs every year trying to kill you. But we know the deaths of COVID, what they claim, was hyperinflated, and we'll talk about that through this weekend. I won't go into that now, but we have plenty of experts here that will cover that, and most of you already know that. Why? Thanks to independent media found out the truth. Because fake news media in Australia, Channel 7, 9, 10, are still telling you to go and get a vaccine. A COVID vaccine. I mean, anyone that still would touch a vaccine, if you're not an anti-vaxxer by now, then I don't know, when will you be? If you think any vaccine's safe, effective, and necessary, you are manipulated. You're being lied to, and you're still going on with the programming. So, folks, it's been a wake-up call, hasn't it? So what's been great about the COVID fraudulent pandemic is that it woke many people up. Just like September woke many people up, just like those who are around in the Iraq war, those weapons of mass destruction by Netanyahu. Now we have to invade and kill 500,000 Iraqi kids, however. Another war started by Netanyahu lying. There's a pattern there, isn't it? Wars started. And just before September 11th, these neocons were quoted as saying, we need to create another Pearl Harbor type event to get the American people to support our wars. 7 wars in 5 years, that took 24 years. 7 years in 5 years, it took 24 years. Lies. All wars are based on lies. Is it not true? If wars can be started by lies, then peace can be started by truth. Julian Assange. True? In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act, George Orwell. How correct has George Orwell started to become? Then when you have a government that can tell you what to read, think, and what to say, you have a tyranny. Wow. Do we have a tyranny? Let's go to a quick ad break. We'll be back with some more. And let's talk about our common enemy. Let's talk about that one nation that didn't want this free speech summit to go ahead, that is censoring us right now. It's probably called as antiseptic. Indonesia, out of the BRICS country, where we're much safer. We can't do independent journalism in Australia because the risks of being arrested. The only reason I'm not in the Gold Coast, Australia right now is the Australian government would probably try and arrest me. For what? Hosting a free speech summit, folks. That's how far our freedoms and our democratic values have been destroyed. And destroyed by who? Why does Israel have the ability to dictate who comes into Australia or not? People complaining about 1.7 million immigrants in the last 2 years flooding into Australia. Well, they should look no more than Israel. Israel controls the Australian immigration policy. One thing I must thank the Israeli government and lobbyists this week is by trying to ban the Free Speech Summit in Australia, by actively sabotaging it, by having the Star Casino cancel it last minute, by banning speakers that even have permanent visas to Australia banned from coming here to speak on topics of free speech, by trying to shut down everything and destroy it, by even pulling aside some of our staff as they arrive into the country, taking everything off them, their phones, sending them court orders. I mean, the level they've gone to, where for security risks, I can't even go back to my home country right now because I'm an independent journalist, and Australian National Review they don't like because we called them out as the lies they were about the COVID pandemic. And of course, we're a little bit critical of a nation that loves to drop bombs on children. It's like, USA, USA, give us more bombs today so we can drop them on little children in Gaza and blow their body pieces away. Hooray, hooray. Thank you, USA. That country, you know, that one that's doing so many great things. They're defending Western civilization. They're the only democracy in the Middle East. Beautiful people. Now I have no issues with the Israelis and the Jewish people. I have an issue really with the fake Jewish imposters. This is what's happened. Let's talk about Israel, shall we? In the little bit of time I have left, we're going to hear about it this weekend. There's no topic. If you think people are like, I woke up and they woke up about the COVID fraud, they figured it all out, and they're all like becoming awakened, and then October 7th happened and went right back to sleep and believed everything the government and newspapers were telling them. That Hamas is really evil and Israel is in the right to genocide Gaza. Hamas may be evil, but we're going to talk about that just in a moment. It's terrorists on the planet. That's not me saying, that's just what they are. They're the act of terrorism. You know, what does September 11th, October 7th, US Liberty all have in common? Bali bombings, when we recently last year investigated the Bali bombings because people, 200 or 300 Australians were killed. What do they have all in common? Israel, Mossad. Oh, you can't say that. Doesn't matter if I say that. If you don't think that's true, Australian National Review has put up many $1 million challenges, and we'll put up another one now. Anyone that wants to show proof and evidence and put up $1 million and we'll match it, we'll toss your house for it, that the thing that's all in common, USS Liberty, September 11th, Bali bombings, October 7th has one thing in common. They're false flag attacks conducted by Israel. Let's learn a little bit about Israel.
Balfour Declaration. And if you don't know the story, this is like a big red pill about the early Zionist movement and how they've been influencing the American government from the beginning. And the story goes something like this. Back during World War I, Great Britain is at war with Germany. The Allies and the Entente are in a stalemate, and America is deciding whether to go into the war. And long story short, you have Jewish Zionists in London who are influential in the British government, and they go to the British government and they say, hey, we know you're having a bad year. You're losing the war badly. It looks like you're going to have to make peace with Germany. They say, but we can get America to join the war. We can get the American Jews who own the newspapers, who have the ear of Woodrow Wilson, who are very influential. We can get them to support America's entry into the war on your side to break the stalemate and help you win the war. But in exchange, we want something. So the Zionists say, well, we'd like to create a homeland for ourselves in Palestine. We can go to our friends in America, our Jewish friends, and we can get America to come in on your side in the war. All you have to do is put out a public document and say there should be a Jewish homeland, and maybe it should be in Palestine. That's the deal. It's a handshake deal. And then, after this meeting, after this negotiation, America enters the war in April 1917. A few months later, in I think November 1917, Great Britain issues the Balfour Declaration. Lord Balfour, the foreign minister, sends a letter to Lord Rothschild and says, we believe there should be a Jewish homeland in Palestine.
Well, there you have some background there. Now, some people don't like Nick because he's apparently anti-Semitic, but anyone's anti-Semitic if, one, they stand up for their own race, and two, criticize Israel. But let's cut the crap. Does Israel deserve criticism? If you stand with Israel still, I used to be pro-Israel. I have many Jewish friends. I don't hate my Jewish friends. I love them dearly. They're very good people. They don't support, many of them support my politics. Actually, even this event, Free Speech Summit, we have a category even for Jewish commentators. Jeffrey Sachs, an economist, Jewish, who I respect greatly, is a nominee. Dave Smith, the former comedian, also a commentator, and others are being nominated. So it's not like we're anti-Jewish. They want to make it out that if you're critical Israel, somehow you're anti-Jewish. You notice even in Australia, they push through anti-Semitism laws because there's a fake terror plot, and then synagogues in Australia have been getting bombed with fire arson, etc. What do all these things have in common? Done by Israel or paid Israel agitators. Why? Because they can drive up anti-Semitism. You notice there was a graphic correlation between anti-Semitism, they claim is rising. Well, is it really anti-Semitism, or is that people are pretty pissed that Israel keeps bombing innocent people, particularly children. That's what it really is. It's not a rise of anti-Semitism. It's a rise of angst and people angry about a valid thing. If you're not angry about Israel dropping bombs, it's probably because you've been lied to about a few things. This is what Israel... That's people there, like, forced by Israel to get into where the food zones are meant to be safe, and when they get there, they're shooting them. Now, Israel, whether you're pro-Israel or not, you have to accept, if you remain pro-Israel, it's kind of like being on an iceberg floating from Antarctica. You're fine in the cold weather because it's quite big, but as it moves towards the equator, that ice is melting. You know what's going to eventually happen. If you're clinging onto that iceberg, it's going to melt and you're going to end up in the water. My warning to people is this, my prediction is this. If you continue to stand with Israel, why it's continuing to murder people based on lies, no justification for it, then you will become a modern-day leper. Now, you can look at my history of predictions. I predicted the rise of Bitcoin, predicted many financial trends, predicted the death of mainstream media and the rise of independent media. I'm telling you now, it's not about being pro anti-Israel. It's about what Israel is doing is wrong. Now, if you're a Christian, you know, and have been tricked, well, it's understandable. Many have been. So, did God choose them? Would God choose the Rothschilds? Well, I'm going to suggest Christians have been tricked and manipulated to support the devil in the state of Israel. How did they trick them? Well, first of all, to the Christians in America, or even some in Australia and the West, that think that God chose the Rothschilds, banker wankers who hate God, hate Christians as much as they hate Muslims, to represent him on earth. Rothschilds were not chosen by God, so Christians should have nothing to do with it. If you don't even have to be like a Charlie Kirk, good man, good Christian, but he still supports Israel. It's like, because this basic thing, they think it's biblical Israel, and I think God chose them. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. The people, most of the Israelis, are not even Semites. So we're going to be anti-Semite. It's a little bit hard because they're Eastern European, most of them. That's why DNA testing, of course, is banned in Israel. That's controversial. We can't say that. And that's why they deflect by trying to ignore a current Holocaust in Gaza. That's not really happening. They deflect back to an 80-year-old Holocaust that is very questionable, where they claim 6 million Jews were killed by Hitler, which we know to be complete nonsense, and we have a $6 million challenge out there. $6 million for anyone that can prove that's true. It's easily debunked. I'm not saying people didn't die in the Holocaust, but there's been much worse Holocaust conducted by Rothschilds. Think about the Bolshevik Revolution. Rothschilds, 30, 60 million Christians killed in Russia. They took over and implemented the Soviet Union. But in the last 20-odd years, 25 years since Putin's booted them out, look how well Russia's doing. Look at Indonesia. They booted out the Rothschilds' influence, the Suharto regime, 25, 26 years ago, that was genociding people. Wherever Israel goes is a genocide. Notice that? I call it Zionism as a death cult. Zionism has become extremism, and extremism, it's a form of terrorism, and it's a death cult. It's a inferior people thinking they're superior. It's a dangerous ideology, and I'm not saying all Zionists are extremists, but unfortunately they're being led that way. It's a political ideology that radicalizes normal people that say, Israel has a right to defend itself. Okay, but if Israel went and bombed your... Who gave $1.4 billion in US cash to them since then? Israel, who had the Qatar open an office for Hamas and paid for it, Israel, which Israeli PM said Hamas should be funded to serve Israel's goals. That was the Israeli Prime Minister. Netanyahu, who built the tunnels or funded the tunnels Hamas uses, Israel. You see a pattern here? Benjamin Netanyahu. Those who want to thwart the establishment of a Palestinian state should support the strengthening of Hamas and the transfer of money to Hamas. This is part of our strategy, known as the Greater Israel Project. Interesting, isn't it? So those who support Hamas, who led Hamas across the border on October 7th and manipulated Westerners, I call dumbed-down Westerners in particular, fall for it. They did. Israel, who turned the cameras off at the border gate. Hamas didn't do that. Israel did. Who removed IDF troops from the Gaza days before? Israel. Who ignored Egyptian intel warning about the attack? Israel. Who watched Hamas train with paragliders and did nothing? Israel. Who moved the rave party near the border 48 hours before? That was also Israel. Who inserted Mossad inside Hamas to record footage? Israel. Who had journalists ready to capture the border event? Israel. Who killed most Israelis on October 7th? Many people don't realize the majority of Israelis they blame Hamas was killed by Israel. Yes, Hamas killed some. These radical, who funds and hires these radical Islamic extremists? If it's not Israel. Who used tanks and helicopters to kill Israelis? Clearly it was Israel because Hamas doesn't have them. Who tested fake stories like beheaded babies and baking babies in ovens? Beforehand, Israel did. That's how you emotionally triggered and manipulated. Who launched a pre-planned PR campaign that was released after attack? That was also Israel. I'm sorry, if you're pro-Israel, you've been lied to. Who needed an excuse to destroy Gaza? Israel did. Who wants a one-world government run from Jerusalem? That would also be Israel. Who pretended to be God's chosen people, but isn't Israel? Who spreads degeneracy via Pornhub and OnlyFans? That's also Israel. Who funds Islamic terror, but also pushes Muslim immigration? Think ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Israel. Who lies about the biblical nation from thousands of years ago? Israel. Who created the three biggest Middle Eastern terror groups? Also, as I said, there is Israel. Folks, this is not about being anti-Israel. People say, Jamie, aren't you being a little bit tough on Israel? And I was like, maybe you're right. Yeah, maybe we should stop blaming Israel for everything it does. Maybe we should. Maybe we should do what Israel does and blame everyone else. But if Israel is doing these things, they should be called out for it. Now, if Britain was dropping bombs on innocent people and killing babies and their mums and their dads, and I called them out or you called them out, that's just not right. Would we be called anti-British? So let's cut the crap about anti-Semitic. It's just absolute bullshit. It's used to censor you. It's used by murderers who think they can twist and turn and use PR against you, and they do. And they control the West. You think Israel runs the West. America is a colony of Israel, the Rothschilds founders, as is Australia, has been very clearly shown this week. Israel determines Australia's immigration policy, determines who can come here, determines if we can have free speech or not. Israel sucked dry the British Empire, and now look at it crumbling before your eyes, and they're sucking dry the American Empire as we speak. They control Trump. We warned people at CPAC 6 months ago that the Trump administration is full of Zionists and that you will not get a political revolution and Trump is going to disappoint people. We predicted that 6 months ago, and the last week you've seen that to be true. I'm sorry if you're a Trump fan, but Trump is a Zionist, and Trump even openly tells you to support Israel. Folks, I'll be back throughout the event to talk some more, but we'll take some questions in just a moment. But hope you enjoy the rest of the Free Speech Summit, wherever you are in the world. If you're live there at the event, a whole amazing range of speakers are still coming that were able to get past Israel stopping many speakers coming to the country. Anyhow, we'll talk to you soon.
Independent media means that you can talk about anything, you can ruffle the feathers, and you can get upset.
Said this is maniacal. I absolutely will not sign off on a false flag event against American citizens.
The USS Liberty.
Right, we're not far off. We're going to click through in a moment.
The USS Liberty, I'll give you like a quick breakdown of it. Basically, Israel was at war, and they wanted to drag the U.S. into the war with them. So they attacked one of our Navy ships, and they did. I mean, it wasn't just like a regular attack. They were like napalming the decks, blowing up the life rafts. They torpedoed the ship. I mean, they just, went at the ship for like an hour and a half. And we had called in SOS calls. We were supposedly their ally. And their goal was to sink this ship. They had 4 torpedo boats. Like they had multiple gunships, helicopters. And they wanted to blame it on the people they were fighting, false flag attacks, and then we would go and fight the people that what we've given them, the war on terror, and all the things we've...
It's back up. Just waiting for that to come up. Yep. All right. All right. Just waiting for Jamie to hit the live button at his end, and we'll jump through it. Recording hasn't started as far as I'm aware.
Ways emerging. Should we follow Labor and Liberal to a dystopic one?
Now, I'm hoping, Jamie, that you can hear me. Just give me the thumbs up. All right, here we go. We may be up and running again. Now, I just want to make sure that, Jamie, that you can hear me. I just want to make sure that I can hear you and responses. Now, we are running this through a StreamYard link via YouTube and back onto the screen, so there's kind of a bit of a delay. So we'll see how we go. We are saying we're live. Yeah, no, I can't hear Jamie, unfortunately. And we're just going to down. Unfortunately, I've got no audio. My volume is up on my computer. But, yeah, no, he did speak before. Okay. All right, here we go. We may be up and running again. Now, I just want to make sure that, Jamie, you can hear me. I just want to make sure that I can hear you and responses. Now, we are running this through a StreamYard link via YouTube and back onto the screen, so there's kind of a bit of a delay. So we'll see how we go. We are...
Hope you can hear me. I can hear you loud.
I can't hear Jamie. All right, so I've got that volume from Jamie. I'm just not getting it through here. So, Jamie, what the best thing for me to do is to ask you a question, allow you to speak, and that will come through the clearest way. Is up on my computer. Yeah, no, you did speak. There's a delay. So, okay. All right. Make sure. It's a significant delay. We are running this via YouTube back on. We are. I can hear you loud. All right, so I've got that volume from Jamie. I'm just not getting it through here. So, Jamie, what the best thing for me to do is to ask you a question, allow you to speak, and that will come through the clearest way. All right, Jamie. Here's the first question. We are struggling to with the delay.
So, Jason, if you guys can hear me, I can just talk for 5 minutes, and then we'll move on to the next speaker.
All right,
Steve.
Let's do that, and I'll introduce Steve in a moment. Okay. I've got that volume from Jamie. I'm just not getting through. He said, Jamie, what the best thing for me to do is to ask you a question, allow you to speak, and that will come through the clearest way. All right, Jamie. Here's the first question. We are struggling to with the delay.
So, Jason, if you guys can hear me, I can just talk for 5 minutes, and then
all right, let's do that, and I'll introduce Steve in a moment. Okay.
So if you can hear me, what I want to just recap on is because this is so
All right, Jamie. Here's the first question. Let's do that. I'll Steve in a moment. Okay.
I'm being aware of we also have to focus on the solution. So I see my assessment of being an independent journalist and years and out of data and research whistleblowers that come to us at independent media and Australian National Review. It does give us some extra insights into what's going on in the world, gives us some extra how it's able to accurately predict things in the future. Not their plans. Now we're able to pull out 2008 vaccine in 2022. How did we know that? We studied before the vaccine. Thanks to those doctors that sent in detailed information to we learned. As I said before, when I was a pro-vaxxer, I somewhat ignorant, and that's the only reason. So the solution for the world, as I see it this way, we have two factions from we have the global faction. This is your World Economic Forum. So nothing but woke nutter capacity populated now. So most of us oppose left-wing extreme radical, not case type of economic or a progress agenda to have a one world government control world. Left back, and they are fighting. They were winning. Someone in America believed was going to be a revolution. Like talking about Trump here, that is the mag that was going to change. Yep. And then there seems such a huge for years of all this information throwing wing elites, the Klaus Schwabs of the world, etc., so Bill Gates and co. under the bus. So a lot of them jumped back and we thought Trump would lead us in that path to create to break out the left and right dynamic. On the right side of politics, you have the right action. There's all these back to like people don't like
Look, what I wanted to do was I wanted to challenge Jamie on some facts, and I wanted to be able to